I think Congress finally awoke from its slumber in all things Venezuela, now that there are reports that essentially the Secretary of Defense perhaps committed a war crime when he said no survivors. I mean, it is against the Geneva Conventions to continue with an order that says there should be no survivors, and if survivors are sort of show themselves, they are to be taken out. So the fact that Congress is now going to investigate this probably now starts the clock on Pete Hegseth, because one thing about the Trump era in general is there's always got to be a fall person, and he will never accept responsibility. He will, sort of defend everything that's going on until there's a moment where essentially he needs to offer up a sacrifice to make sure they don't come after him. Well, Pete Hegseth, you are going to be that sacrifice. You probably believe you are carrying out the exact orders the President of the United States wants. But I promise you, he will not have your back. He does not care about you. He does not care about your future. He does not care about what happens there. And in fact, I do think Pete Hegseth is going to need a lawyer because, and a lot of people who carried out these orders. Look, at some point, the head of SouthCom, who decided to resign essentially in and around this period where these controversial orders were given, is a flashing red light that there are people in the chain of command who thought they were getting illegal orders and just weren't realized it is against the law to follow an illegal order. As these lawmakers said, we got to remember why these lawmakers first put this video together. Yes, are they trolling a little bit? Of course. Are they trying to make a political point? Yes. But at the same time, it was a real concern that the Secretary of Defense was giving illegal orders, and what was happening in Venezuela without any sort of, remember, the administration has not gone to Congress in order to get legal authority to do this. They are using authority that previous Congresses gave to presidents having to do with actual terrorism threats from overseas, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, things like that. This was not about a manufactured terrorism threat in this sort of designation of narco-terrorists, which do not exist. The closest thing you could call anybody to a narco-terrorist essentially are the Taliban, in that they were growing poppy in order to sell heroin, in order to fund terrorism. So if you're looking for anybody that fits the definition, you could argue you'd have to go to Afghanistan to get that, to go meet that definition. There is no place in and around Venezuela that meets that definition. We are finally going to get, and I think it took, last week I shared with you how I had an interview with Mike Turner, he's a current Republican member of Congress, but the former chair of the House Intel Committee, and you could just, if you just watched the conversation he and I had over Venezuela and whether these orders were legal or not, and how concerned he was about the legality of what was happening here, he was basically saying, without saying directly, that yes, this thing is totally illegal and Congress is totally out of the loop. So this report about the shoot to kill order, no survivors allowed by Hegseth, which appears to be a violation of the Geneva Conventions, especially when there's been no declaration of war whatsoever on any of these folks. Congress has finally awoke from its slumber, and we'll see. I have some faith in the Senate Armed Services Committee to do something serious, because I think Roger Wicker, the Republican chairman, and Jack Reed, the ranking member, they seem to put the country before party. Both of them, whenever they've worked together a long time. I think that they're going to do a really serious inquiry. I don't know about the House. As we know, the House Republicans, we'll see. I think it depends on who you get. I do think you have some House Republicans that realize that Donald Trump treats them like sacrificial lambs and that they're nothing but pawns. And I think I do think he is accumulating more and more critics from his own party for the way he's behaving. As I said, it's not been very America first. It's always Trump first, but not America first. That's making some people peel away. Getting involved in other people's in more foreign entanglements, that seems to be an issue. But let me introduce one more political peril that Trump has created for himself with Venezuela. Now that he's got Congress's attention with what they're doing, in theory, it might hamstring him more. Ironically, what they've been doing has been raising the hopes of the Venezuelan and Cuban communities in South Florida that Trump's going to, go and get Maduro. If he doesn't get Maduro, and this is where I think, unfortunately, he's going to do something that's likely illegal here. And he's going to give an order that we're going to be debating for years about whether this was legal or not. And what happens here with Maduro. Let's see how it's done. But he's more likely to try something than actually get congressional approval, because politically, if he doesn't follow through on his threat to get rid of Maduro, this will be the Bay of Pigs for Venezuelan Americans. Essentially, the Cuban Americans turned on the Democratic Party because they believed Kennedy didn't help out those Cuban exiles who were trying to overthrow Castro, and he sort of left them to fend for themselves, and he didn't follow through. And it is the initial split. Like, why are Cubans Republicans? It's because of that moment. No other reason. Well, if Trump never gets Maduro, that's the situation he's setting himself up, and it could trickle into the Cuban community as well. So because of that fear, and I know that, and I would suspect that Marco Rubio, Carlos Jimenez, many of the longtime Cuban-American politicians down in South Florida who understand this issue, understand what South Florida exiles may expect from President Trump here, are going to end up pushing him to do something that, again, I think is going to have enormous constitutional consequences and long-term impact on the role of Congress and what it plays in war making, and potentially on this fragile coalition that is MAGA that he put together. Because did any of them, these are all folks that all are supposedly against the Iraq war, did any of them vote for this? And I think you could see more fracturing, even as remember, he lives in South Florida, so he's become an unofficial member of the Cuban and Venezuelan exile communities down there. He constantly gets that PR in his ear. So we know where he's going to end up siding. What he does not fully appreciate is what that's going to do the rest of his coalition outside of South Florida. Having good life insurance is incredibly important. I know from personal experience. I was 16 when my father passed away. We didn't have any money. He didn't leave us in the best shape. My mother, single mother now, widow, myself, 16, trying to figure out how am I going to pay for college. And lo and behold, my dad had one life insurance policy that we found. It wasn't a lot, but it was important at the time. And it's why I was able to go to college. Little did he know how important that would be in that moment. Well, guess what? That's why I am here to tell you about Ethos Life. They can provide you with peace of mind knowing your family is protected, even if the worst comes to pass. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy, all designed to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. There's no complicated process, and it's 100% online. There's no medical exam required. You just answer a few health questions online. You can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes, and you can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your home. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some policies start as low as $2 a day. That would be billed monthly. As of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Chuck. So again, that's ethos.com/Chuck. Application times may vary, and the rates themselves may vary as well. But trust me, life insurance is something you should really think about, especially if you've got a growing family.